This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes or Apple Podcast, type in Old Dogs, spelled D-A-W-G-S, find our podcast, and subscribe. Following podcast is part 2 of a 2-episode podcast series. Why do you feel that that you should manage your own renovations? And the second part of that is, how do people do that if they're out-of-state investors?
Well, I think that I encourage all real estate investors, new or old, to manage their own rehab renovation projects, because it's, first of all, the reason why we're involved in real estate investing is to make money. And if you are willing to give on a renovation project, and this is coming from a general contractor, 30 to 50% of that cost associated with it can be saved and you can keep in your pocket, that's pretty substantial savings. So that's, especially if you're a new real estate investor, that kind of money is critical in being able to propel you forward in your real estate investment journey. If you think about it, like if you could save $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a rehab project, how long is that going to take you to save up in order to be able to move forward with that in your next project? So that's one side. Second of all, and maybe even more importantly, is if you are able to understand the whole renovation rehab project, how it's supposed, the mechanics of it, it puts you in a much better position as a professional real estate investor to be able to move forward and be able to identify properties and what you could or should do in them, and the costs are involved. Because if you're actively involved in being successful in real estate investing, you're going to see a bunch of properties. And you're going to have to be able to, at a snap decision, to be able to make a decision quickly in determining whether there's value there or not. And you can't rely on a home inspector to come and, $300 or $400 or $500, pay them for them to give you their assessment of what what work is required in that property. You need to do that, because there's moments of time that you got to make snap decisions. You can't wait for that person. Also, it could get pretty expensive if you keep hiring, these people to come out to do this evaluation for you. So I strongly encourage new real estate investors, young and old, to go and learn this skill set, because it helps them save money and helps them identify properties moving forward. You bring up an interesting issue with regards to how do you, if you're out of state, how do you look after and manage your own rehab renovation? Obviously, there's going to be some limitations in being able to do it when you're not there overseeing it on a daily basis. And I don't mean daily, you have to be there at a project, but you need to be there on a more consistent basis versus if you're from out of state. But still, the fundamentals associated with planning and managing the renovation rehab don't change. You still need to identify, even if you're out of state, what are the actual goals to this renovation rehab process like that you want to initiate. You got to establish those. And once you've established those, you got to validate them. Once you've validated them, you got to know, how much do I have in the kitty? How much do I have in my budget? Where do I find the money to be able to do this work? Whether it's hard money lenders, lines of credits, things of that nature. And then ultimately, you got to move again to a scope of work. You have to put that together. You can't rely on a general contractor to do that for you, because they're going to, and I'm speaking as a general contractor, you're going to lose that game. You need to do that on your own. And then once you have that, you bring it out in the marketplace and you let's say other general contractors, let them quote on that particular scope of work. You're getting to get quotes that are comparison. You can compare apples to apples with. By virtue, if you go let them do that for you, let them figure out what the problems are, and then you're never going to be able to find out whether this is a good quote or a bad quote. And oftentimes I find that when you get a series of quotes from individuals, people don't really read in detail what those quotes are all about or understand them, because sometimes the quote that is $20,000, $10,000 more expensive is actually a better deal than the cheap one that you got from this guy driving around in a beat up pickup truck. So the fundamentals of what I preach are still relevant, whether you're out of state or in the properties next door to you. You still have to go through those series of planning and execution to be able to get to the point where you're able to save the most amount of money and with the least amount of aggravation. Even if you're out of state, you need to have created a framework of how the interaction with a general contractor or a tradesperson, how that's supposed to play out. If you don't, they will, and you're going to lose that time and time again.
Gotcha. Now, just to clarify, when you talk about this big chunk of savings that you can have, now you're not talking about sort of stepping into the GC role, are you, the general contractor, or you're saying you still have a general contractor in both cases?
No, I actually what I'm advocating, depending on your jurisdiction, of course, but what I'm advocating is for new real estate investors to act as their own general contractor. By virtue of fulfilling the planning and process, you should be in a position to be able to execute the renovation rehab, acting as your own general contractor, and just manage the process by virtue of hiring directly the electrician, the plumber, the painter, whatever is required in that particular renovation rehab project that you got going on.
Gotcha. Oh, that's great.
Bill, it's a different animal. Again, depending how far you are to the extent of what the actual project itself. If you're an out-of-stater and it's a full-blown reno rehab project where you're gutting walls and washrooms and bathrooms, then that could be a bit problematic for you to be able to do out of state to be able to manage you acting as a general contractor. It would be difficult. But nevertheless, the processes that that we talked about and really the fine tuning, the planning and the execution of it still applies when you're dealing with a general contractor. Like instead of dealing with 12, 14, 16 different trades, you're only going to deal with the general contractor. But still, nevertheless, with that general contractor, you need to put the guidelines, the parameters in place of what the planning aspect and the actual execution of the renovation should entail.
Got it. Now, I've worked with some guys that are just amazing handymen that are just kind of jacks of all trades, and they are really good at plumbing, really good at carpentry, really good. What are your feelings about handyman? And do you feel you would rather have a guy that is just a plumber, a guy that is just a electrician? What are your thoughts along those lines?
Well, Bill, there's a time and place for everyone. So for handyman, for the smaller, lighter duty kind of rehab, cosmetic kind of sort of little lipstick on a pig, perhaps that might be the direction that you should go. But I've never encountered a handyman being as skilled and a proficient or efficient in time than an actual tradesperson that's all they do. Like, I know everything that there is to do to build a house or to renovate, rehab a house. And I could do every single aspect of the work myself. But I do concede that I couldn't do it at the same rate or same speed as someone who does it every single day. They've got every code, they got it all figured out. They've got the tools, they've got the equipment, they've got the experience and knowledge to be able to whip through and get the job done, completed a lot quicker than I. I can get it perhaps as the same quality as them, but I'll never be able to get it to the same efficiency as quickly as they could. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's a strong consideration in the real estate investing world, because time is money. Often we're running to hard money lenders and paying 10, 12% on the money that we're borrowing to get our project completed. And every week, month that goes by adds to that carrying cost, or the rental debt. If you're looking to rent that month, that all of a sudden disappears, that's money out of your pocket. So I'm a strong advocate of if you're getting into a major kind of the $50,000 price range kind of rehab where you're taking out some kitchens and walls and bathrooms, that I really strongly encourage people to get professionals that's all they do in terms of the electrician, the painter, the plumber, because you'll get a much better quality work at a much faster rate.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I know that some of us, I'd say all of us real estate investors are always looking at costs. I think a big trend right now, especially for for landlords, is to pull out the carpets and put in the vinyl planking. It's just so much cheaper on a turnaround and so forth. And doing something like that, you've got a guy that's going to do it half the price of somebody who may have a license. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in those types of situations, of course, it's a business. And so ultimately, if you can find a handyman that's going to do it for 30% less than a professional hardwood or professional vinyl installer, by all means. And if you have the time from month to month when you're rental, you have that leeway of being able to, you got some time on your hands before you can get the next renter to come in, then sure, you can do that. Those are business decisions that everyone needs to make. But my focus in talking about the renovation rehab side is the more substantial type of work where you're gutting houses and you're trying to renovate them thoroughly. I don't know if a handyman's place would be I wouldn't want to have a series of handymen do that. Perhaps some aspects, they'll clean up the little tidy. There's always loose ends in a major renovation rehab project that a handyman definitely would help out. But overall, what I have discovered and I've done thousands of renovations, commercial and residential. I believe that in the larger scale jobs, you need to have put a team together that are professional and are specific in their responsibilities and their abilities. And so I like to deal with just electricians and painters and plumbers and all the trades that are specific to the work that's required to complete a project.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, this has been some great information here. And I thought I might just shift gears a little bit here because one, I think that this, I wanted to give as much time as I could to the whole renovation side of it. I know there's more that you probably have to share here, but I also think that there's a great story here. You were a very successful contractor. You could have just had a contracting business and done great for yourself, but you started moving into all these other directions, and that's doesn't always work out well for people where they start these other business entities and they're trying to manage all of them and they have their hands in them and so forth. And I wanted to, take a step back here and look at, how you made that decision. You could have just said, okay, no, I'm good. I'm a I've got my contracting business, great business, everything's going well. But there was a motivation there for you. And I think you did one of the wisest things you could have, and that is by finding a good coach that knew your situation and was able to coach you not just in how to acquire more properties or be a good landlord or get the good financing, but this was somebody who knew a lot about business. And I know a lot of our listeners are folks that are, just doing this on the side. They have a couple of rental properties, but they may have that pull or that draw to want to grow something bigger, something that they could literally hand down to their kids and be like a legacy. And talk to us about that stage, making that decision to really go for something that was more than just a successful business, but multiple businesses, and to move in the direction you did.
Well, Bill, it never started out that way. I moved into general contracting because it was an area that I had a lot of experience in because of my upbringing, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so I was doing that. I was developing that business, and I was starting to increase and grow. But what ended up happening is I kept running into these individuals that had these portfolios and they were acquiring properties, they were buying and selling, and I was intrigued by it. And again, because of my background, it led me to then start that. And then by virtue of starting that, and I started to get successful at that, and I started accumulating properties. The next offshoot was natural for me was, well, I need to manage these properties. And so why would I hire another party to do that, which I was in the beginning? Why wouldn't I assume that, take that over, and then perhaps create a business onto itself that not only would look after my properties, but perhaps even look after others? And so that's how things progressed. It just led from one to the other. And I think what ended up happening was I've been blessed. I've been very lucky, and been able to identify individuals that I could do business with and that I could hire, that I treated them well. And I was able to identify individuals that were very good at what they did, and I would look after and I would compensate them well. And as such, I was able to set it up. I would be able to, I'm more of the visionary, and then the actual bricks and mortars and nuts and bolts, I would find individuals to do that, if that makes any sense. And so by finding those types of individuals that were good at what they did, and I guess it's a gift, I was able to bring them into the fold, and then I would be able to transition. I would be able to move off, still provide the oversight, but I would be able to move on past that.
But if you were a type, like you say, a type A plus, it must have been hard to let go. Was it for you, or was it a relief, or was it just like, oh, I got to trust this guy, okay? And where you have to just back away and kind of grit your teeth and hope that they do the right thing?
That was my biggest problem, and that's what stunted my growth. Was I was a micromanager, type A plus personality, and I was the only one that could do it the best. And unfortunately, I got in the way of my progress or my evolution to where eventually I am today. It wasn't until I hit a wall, and I remember the house. I remember sleeping at that particular house, staring at a freshly painted ceiling, waking up in the middle of the night, and I had this onslaught of emotions of, the plumber that didn't show up, the electrician that was looking for early payment, the kitchen manufacturer didn't show up on time, is going to give me a delay. All of these emotions hit me all at once, and I knew that I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't continue doing this. And so I reached out to a local real estate investor who was very successful, had a great, beautiful portfolio of properties. And I hired him, and I went to him and told him my problems, and he was more than willing to help me in getting out of that mindset. All of this stuff, success, Bill, is mindset. And I had to get a shift in mindset to be able to disassociate myself with the actual working in the business. Even though I'm really good at it, I was getting in my way of progress, and now I'm working on the business. And that's what that was a huge transition. That was a transformational period of my life. And that was where, in life, we hit certain junctures where we can go left or right. I, at that particular juncture, could have gone one way or the other way. It was this individual, I guess, in the universe, God played a part in sending this particular person, or brought these situations to come abreast at the same time, that resulted me in making that decision and bringing this individual into my life. And as a result, because of that individual, I've been able to experience the success that I have. So I ultimately, at the end of the day, everyone needs to look within themselves and establish what it is that they want to see themselves, 5 years, 50 years from now, and establish clear, definable goals. Maybe even write them down and stare at them every single day. And all the actions that you take throughout that day, throughout the year, are the small little goals that you need to accumulate and accomplish to get to the ultimate goal. And this is the kind of stuff that was taught to me, that was shepherding me through. And as a result of that's where I'm at today in my life.
And that mindset is, like you said, it's so true that having the proper mindset is really a requirement to do what you did. But did he also take a look at sort of the financial aspect, how to properly handle your books, how to avoid paying taxes that you don't have to pay, a lot of the other management aspects that may not necessarily pertain to real estate specifically, but just to good business practices?
Of course, all of those things are important, and all of those things he helped me out in. But all of those things were far paled in comparison to what he taught me in terms of mindset. And if you look at an individual who's got a portfolio of 3 or 4 properties, and they're listening to this podcast and want to accomplish something like what I've been able to accomplish, I'm telling you that I'm not any special or different than Bill or whoever's out there is listening to this podcast. I'm not special. I don't have some magic powers. I just was able to, maybe it's because of my ability to be able to focus, be driven, passionate. Like, I'm doing what I enjoy. I've always been a proponent that everyone out there's got a certain gift, and they need to find what that gift is. And once they have that gift, it will come effortlessly. There's some people that are really good at baking cakes. There's some people really good at singing songs. I'm really good at what I'm doing right now. I thoroughly enjoy it. There's many times when there's people that will catch me staring at one of my buildings. And I'm staring at it, I'm looking at it, and I'm marveled by the bricks and the mortar and the windows, and I'm so proud and so happy. It brings me such joy. And I'm so thankful of having this particular property. And then my wife will look at me and say, "What are you staring at? What are you staring at?" and I catch myself often looking. It could be a small little bungalow that I have to, a 22-story apartment building. I'm looking at it, I'm staring at it, and I'm enthralled by it. And I'm so thankful that I have what I have. And then that's another thing, that we should be thankful for everything that we have, because we are truly blessed to live in the country that we live in, and the freedoms and opportunities that it presents itself. So for that individual who's got a couple of properties, who wants to have 20 properties, 50 properties, you can do it. You can do it because the mechanisms and opportunities exist. I think there's opportunities of being able every single day of acquiring properties, structuring it in such a way that you can, with creative financing, be able to purchase it, and through some hard work and determination, be able to turn it into something magical and something beautiful, that it's a springboard into acquiring more and more properties. It does happen. It does exist. It happens every single day. And so it's just getting into the proper mindset that it will enable you to be able to do that. And trust me, it's not all hocus pocus that I'm saying. It's factual. It's fact that this is what's prohibiting a lot of people like it's like akin to somebody who's interested in learning how to drive a car. Remember back in the day when 16 years of age, you couldn't wait until you got into the front, got it behind the steering wheel and started driving that car. Well, there was a lot of apprehension the first time you got into that behind that steering wheel. There's so many mechanical and things that have to go through your brain in order to be able to maneuver that vehicle around. It took a period of time for you to get over the fear, but also to learn all those things. But now 20 years, 50 years, 10 years later, you jump in a car and it's like nothing. It's like second thought. You turn the key and you go. These are the types of things that mindset is so critically important in being able to make that transition from one property to 10 properties or 10 properties to 100 properties. So I'm a huge proponent of it because I've experienced it. I've been touched in my life by it. And I encourage people also to really think about it in that manner, that I'm not any more special than you are. And a lot of famous people out there have said the same thing too. It's just a matter of mindset and trying to create mini goals, accomplishing them toward the larger goal.
And, I know as a contractor, you're probably from early stages, you were hiring people to work for you. And as you built up your construction business and so forth, a little different when you've got people working for you that are, this guy shows up late, he does, bad work or whatever, fire him, you get another guy that does better, But when you're talking about the level of growth that you experienced, you basically have some people you're going to be handing sort of the keys to the kingdom, right? I mean, they're going to know all your finances. They're going to have access to funds. They're going to, there's that's kind of a scary aspect for a lot of people to think, that I'm going to hire some guy. It's best. I don't know him. I haven't known him all my life, but he's got the qualifications. I've interviewed him. I spent time with him. But when you're handling people like that, the responsibility of running one of your businesses, that's a huge move.
Absolutely, and I'm not going to say that I haven't made mistakes along the way and finding individuals that I thought would be best suited for my company and then all of a sudden, 3 months, 6 months later, it didn't work out. Unfortunately, nobody has on their foreheads written if they're a winner or a loser, if they're good or bad or evil. And so sometimes I've made those mistakes. But I don't know. Like I've been lucky. There have been very few and far between. Where I've made mistakes is when I've gotten off of what I'm really good at in terms of real estate and gone into other ventures that I didn't know much about, is where I've gotten slapped around and I've lost money and a lot of pain associated with that. That's where I've realized that I should stick to what I'm good at, and this is where I'm really good at. I'm really good at the whole aspect of real estate, whether it's building homes or whether it's renovating properties or doing restoration work or doing property management. This is what I'm good at. I'm good at making those assessments and finding people to plug into those areas where I'm sort of flying at that 30,000 foot level. And I've got people, great people that are looking after it. And I understand where you're coming from, Bill, that there is a bit of hesitation when you're dealing with dollars and giving over control.
But you got to get over right?
that. You got to get over that. You got to get over that mindset because at the end of the day, you won't be able to accomplish. You won't be able to accomplish much with two hands. You need to bring people in, qualified, good people, and creating that power team doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hire them. There's great accountants out there. There's great property managers out there. There's great engineers. There's a lot of greatness out there, and that does not necessarily mean that you need to hire them. You could, create relationships with them where there's a win-win. And I love creating those types of situations because it's in their best interest for me to succeed, and it's in my best interest for them to succeed. So, for example, I have great relationships with real estate agents in these areas that I have investments in. And I've got these relationships with them because they know what I'm looking for. And they know that if they were to reach out and provide a property that I'm not going to, there's no shucking and jiving or move, I don't cheat people. And if I'm interested in it, I move forward, and that's that. And if I make a mistake, I don't blame people. It's a mistake that I've made or my group has made. So Yeah, that's how you got to get over that. You got to get into that mindset of progressing and moving forward. And I've been able to do that, and I encourage other people to do that. You got to get out of that comfort zone and move and just keep progressing and moving forward.
Well, I was going to ask you two questions. One, the biggest mistake, which I think you answered. And second, the biggest success. It sounds like that shift of mindset. What would you say? Would you say that was your biggest success that really changed the whole trajectory for you?
I think so. But the early 90s, late 90s, that's where things started to fall in place with me. Those were, I guess maybe I got lucky for being at the right place at the right time. I don't know. Some people would say you create your own luck. I don't know. That was a period of time where everything sort of snapped in and clicked into place for me. And I don't know how else if I didn't have the mindset sort of thing figured out, I don't know if I would have been able to accomplish I don't think for sure I would not accomplish what I've accomplished in my life.
Was that when you got the coach around that time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of folks listening here. Our show is targeted to folks 50 years of age and older that either are approaching retirement, are already in retirement, or as you call it, semi-retirement, which basically means you're not really retired, but you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
But they're looking at real estate in a number of different ways. Some people, they have their little nest egg. They want to get a good return on that nest egg so they don't have to necessarily draw it down, but can live off of the interest of that nest egg. Then there's those that maybe don't have the funds that they want, and real estate will generate the cash flow to really give them the retirement that they want, and that little bonus of being able to create a legacy that they can hand down to their kids. What advice would you have for those people starting later in life? Now, you've been doing this since it sounds like you could probably walk. You're probably going in and helping your dad with projects. But those of us that are starting later in life, what advice would you have? How would you do you think they should approach it? We can't necessarily go in there and start flipping houses, or some of us might be able to, but it might be a little hard, if we're going to be doing a lot of that work. So what advice would you have for them?
I would encourage anyone that is interested in real estate investing that it's how old you are is irrelevant, because the time frame associated with you being able to identify a property, do what needs to be required of that property, and then ultimately do something with it, whether it's hold on to it or to sell it. We're not talking about years and years here. If it's done properly, what's most important is the purchase, the buy. They say money's made on the buy. And oftentimes so many times I find that new real estate investors, young or old, will rush into purchasing a property, and they're going on that MLS constantly to try to identify a property that's a deal. And unfortunately, there is no deals on MLS because you got millions and millions of eyeballs looking at the same properties as you are. And I encourage individuals who really want to get into real estate investing to make investments not in looking at properties necessarily, but first making those investments on yourself, by educating yourself and surrounding yourself with individuals that have been there, done that, and perhaps maybe even paying for a coach or finding a mentor to be able to open your eyes to the opportunities that exist in real estate investing. It doesn't matter if you're 65 or 45 or 25. The opportunities are there. The opportunities do exist, and they exist every single day. People come to me all the time and saying, in this heated real estate market, there are no deals. And I look at them, and sometimes if they're close enough to my computer or my phone, I show them all the things that I get on a daily basis from the relationships that I've created out there in the real estate marketplaces that I'm concentrated on. And I've told you in the beginning, I'm in Michigan, I'm in the Detroit area, I'm in Ohio, in that Cleveland area. And I've got relationships with individuals there on the grounds that feed me opportunities. Why can't you, who's entering the real estate market, entering the real estate investing biz. Why can't you create those relationships? Is it because I'm special and you're not? I'm not any more special than you are. Everybody is able to go out there and identify an area, do their research, and start looking at creating relationships where opportunities will all of a sudden pop up. It's amazing if you have the right mindset, if you're driven and you're passionate, and you start looking at particular areas, all of a sudden things that you never saw before all of a sudden start to appear. And it's happened time and time again in my interactions with people that got started in the real estate business that are oblivious and are wondering where to start, what to do. And then by virtue of me providing a little guidance, a little kick in the pants, all of a sudden they understand and realize that there are opportunities all around them, but it requires work. It requires dedication. This is not meant for everybody, but you got to work at it if you want to succeed. And it's like in anything in life, you got to work hard at it. If it was easy, everybody would be a successful real estate investor. My life was not easy. I mentioned to you before, I've cleaned toilets. I've cleaned many, many toilets. I've slept at job sites. If you saw my body, I've got scars on them from renos that have, things that have gone bad. So I've done whatever it takes to be successful. And so if you want to be successful, you need to do and take those types of steps and get out of your comfort zone to be able to go to the next level. And once you get to the next level, you look back and you say, wow, that's you're in a different mindset. You look back and you're like, wow, thankfully I'm not there anymore. But you'll see a lot of people that you've left behind. And just a matter of progressions, just progressing forward. It's the opportunities exist. There's opportunities to purchase property with nothing down. There's opportunities, like, for example, to become a wholesaler and be able to find properties and find real estate agents, just make the connection where you can make money. And you're learning the business, but also at the same time, you're just delivering a service and you're making money at it. So opportunities exist no matter what age you are. You just got to get into the proper mindset. The opportunities are there.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, you're still a young guy at heart here. I can tell just the way you talk and the enthusiasm that you have for your businesses and where you're at right now with your life. But looking ahead here, what's sort of your plans? 10, 20 years down the road. What do you hope to accomplish still? What do you want to see in your life?
I'm really at that stage of my life where I've achieved financial security. I've not only for myself, but for future generations of my family. So I'm not driven by money. I'm really driven by the interaction like I'm having here with you today and being able to hopefully shed some light, some advice to people that are listening to your podcast that perhaps might impact their life. And if I could hear about that, it would fulfill me. It would really reward me. It would make me feel very good. And that's where I'm at in my life. I love engaging with people and helping them in this, what I'm really good at. I'm really good at real estate investing and rehabbing renovations. I'm really good at it. And so if I can share my wisdom with people and be able to uplift their lives and their families, it really does bring joy to me. And hopefully what you've been able to get from this podcast is I'm really passionate about this. I love real estate and I want to be able to share all this information that I've accumulated over 30 years with people. Ultimately, what I'm really excited about the real estate investing business might be actually surprising you. It's actually because the same business that existed over 30 years ago when I got started exists today. Yes, the internet is kind of intertwined and kind of helped here and there, but essentially, Bill, what you and I were doing back 30 years ago is essentially what's happening today. Technology hasn't been able to infiltrate itself to the point where it's really skewed it or screwed it up. Like if you look at brick and mortar operations, you're too young to remember Sears or walking into Sears where I remember, the whole floor was dedicated to tools and things of that nature. Those types of things because of the evolution of the internet and business concepts, all of a sudden Sears no longer exists. That doesn't happen. It hasn't happened in real estate. Yeah. What the fundamentals of real estate that existed 30, 50, 100 years ago still exist today. The opportunity to being able to put X amount of dollars down and leveraging, borrowing money, all that kind of stuff that you can't, those things haven't changed. Maybe there have been some improvements with the internet, but the fundamentals associated with real estate haven't. So that's one of the things, as an older fella, I appreciate it, and I'm thankful because everything else around us seems to keep constantly changing, and the real estate hasn't.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. People are always going to need it, and it's always going to be there.
That's right. That's right. So with regards to you asked me about the future of my business, we're just going to continue doing what we're doing. I don't see any change in that. There may be some shifts in moving into other parts of the country where I see developments, maybe trimming back some positions and then increasing others. I like being a contrarian in those types of situations. There seems to be a huge shift of the north moving to the south, and there's going to be I'm already there, and I'm seeing that there's opportunities that are presenting themselves. Chicago will be Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Akron, New York City. Those are places that there's a reason why they were there 100 years ago and will continue to be there 100 years from now. And I think there's opportunities, and there's always these shifts that occur, demographics. That one group will disappear or move out, and then typically it'll come back, or some other group will come in its place. There's always supply and demand. So aspect associated with it. So there's particular areas that I think that people should focus on. And that's another conversation or topic onto itself about what defines a great place to invest in, and what area, and what areas are not so much.
I might have to have you back again to do that. So you've been coaching now for how long?
I've been doing it for I've been coaching people, like, as I mentioned before, I've always had friends, family, neighbors who come to me with, they want to do a renovation rehab, and they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. And so I've always helped people, shepherd them through the process. But actively, coaching, it's only been around approximately 18 months that I've been doing it, about a year and a half. And I really got started because I consciously wanted to take a step back from the active day-to-day grind of my businesses, and I just wanted to sort of take it easy, and I got great people in place. I just wanted to stop and smell the flowers and sort of downshift. But during that period of time of doing that, I kind of got also bored, and I wanted to do something with myself. And it wasn't until I came a friend of ours came to me and asked me for some help on their renovation, that I realized that in helping them, that, hey, this is kind of stuff I really enjoyed, and then put a little pepper in my step and put some juice, got me juiced up. And then after that, I had a conversation with a fellow real estate investor who happens to be a coach too, and we were talking. And I told him about my experience with this reno that I did, this rehab. And it was that the coach who said, you'd be surprised at how many people who want to get into real estate, who are already in real estate, there's such a huge fear in that renovation rehab side of the business, which is a critical component to be successful at it. You'd be surprised at how many people are fearful and need some guidance and help. You'd be perfect at it. You should try. You should try doing this. And so that's what started me on this odyssey of reaching out to people and people reaching out to me and helping them. And I help them. I can help them in all aspects, but in particular on that renovation rehab side, because there's so much disinformation out there on how to do a proper rehab renovation project. And we touched on it in our podcast. A lot of the stuff that I've spoken to you about really doesn't exist out there. This whole idea of sitting back and creating goals and going through a needs and wants list, a scope of work, all this kind of stuff you'll find on the commercial side, which very, the commercial project, you'll find it all there. But on the residential side, it just doesn't exist. But it's so critical to making sure that the renovation comes in on time, on budget, and is of a certain quality. And so that's who I am. That's where that's my niche. That's my wheelhouse. I love that kind of stuff, and that's where I'm out there helping people and And thankfully, Bill, you've invited me as a guest on your podcast. I really enjoy talking about this stuff. And hopefully there's people out there who have come away from this podcast enjoying the conversation, have learned something.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's great that this has turned into a two-parter here, because I think there's enough great information on both sides here. But we're kind of coming near the end of our time, and like I said, I'm going to probably have to have you back and talk about how to assess a market and so forth. But this is what we call our wrap it up session, where I ask you a series of quick questions about resources that have been valuable to you, and share them with our audience. Hopefully they'll be able to tap in these things as well. So if you're ready, we can wrap it up.
Okay.
All right. First question, favorite real estate book?
There's a whole bunch of books that I have read that I've enjoyed. Probably the one that I encourage folks to go out there and grab is a pretty popular one, that Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's a good book that will start people in the right direction, get them in the right mindset, frame of mind.
Great. That's a great one. That's my first pick too. How about just a favorite general business book, something that helps you become a better business person?
I think that it's what again, there's been a number of great books out there, from Napoleon Hill to all the good ones. But one book in particular that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, that I think I strongly recommend people reading, especially when they start in the beginning. These young bucks. The Wealthy Barber is a great book that I encourage people to go out there and buy. It gives you sort of an understanding of the power of compounding money and finances, getting your personal finances in order. It's a powerful book, and I would encourage people to read.
That's The Wealthy Barber?
Correct.
Excellent. How about websites for success? And any that you use or recommend to people?
Unfortunately, with a lot of websites, for example, like one popular website that I have been on, like Bigger Pockets, for example, is a relatively good one. Unfortunately, with that, in particular on the forums, if you go there, is that as much great information you might be able to find from individuals, there's a lot of stuff that's grossly inaccurate. And so that's a problem with forums. That's a problem with the internet. But that's one that I would think that people should probably go visit.
Okay, good. Do you have anything on your phone that you use that is of value to you? It doesn't have to be business related.
I try to stay away from the phone. I begrudge the day of that. On one hand, it's a great little piece of machinery, but on the other hand, it's so consumed in our lives. So I really don't have I've got the typical stuff that I'm sure you have on your phone, but I can't really say that one's more favorite than the other. I try to stay away from it as best as possible. But yeah, so I can't really answer that. They're all I'm
with you on that one. I think these screens ended up taking over our lives here, so I can relate to that.
It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and also at the same time, it just monitors everything that you do or say or walk and look at, and it's amazing. It's amazing what how the world has been transformed because of that piece of machinery.
You got that. How about a favorite quote? Anything that sticks with you, encouraged you, or something that you have sort of relied on or learned down the road?
I love history, and I'm a great student of history. And one quote that's always struck me that I use every once in a while, and if anybody knows me knows that I use it often, is, "In war, there is no substitute for victory." And it's John MacArthur. I think he said it infamously in the night after World War II. In war, there's no substitute for victory. And I've added this little thing, a twist on it. Attack, attack, attack. Never retreat. But if you do have to retreat, is to prepare attack again. We always constantly have to move forward. We always have to progress. We have to enrich ourselves. We have to constantly get out of that comfort zone and be able to achieve what it is that we want to achieve in life. So constantly, you gotta attack.
Great stuff. Now, this one, I don't know if you've had experience with. It doesn't sound like it. Sounds like you've made a lot of great decisions along the way. But let's say you lost absolutely everything, all of your assets. And knowing what you already know, if you had to start over and you only had $1,000 in cash, what would you do with that $1,000 to relaunch your real estate investing business?
Wow, that's a great question. And it sort of touches on the topic that we're talking about, the 50 some odd years old person who wants to get into real estate investing. If I were to encounter that situation, and if you were to throw me somewhere where I didn't know anybody, didn't know anything, the first steps I would do is I would take that $1,000 and I would invest it in myself in terms of perhaps education, finding some individual out there that would be able to provide me with a clear path of how to get from where I am today to where I want to be tomorrow. But more, if I really indulge in answering the question, I think that a lot of real estate investors jump into trying to find a property to figure out how to put a down payment on it and learn the business that way. And what I would encourage people to do is actually get into wholesaling, where you go through all of the mechanics and learn how to find great deals. And then once you're able to fine tune and learn that process, and at the same time you're making money along the way, that in this process in itself is something that will give you a major springboard into real estate investing on your own. So if I only had $1,000, you threw me somewhere where I didn't know didn't know anything, I would invest in myself in terms of trying to research and identify the areas of where I can do business in terms of finding properties, older properties. And then I would actively try to wholesale, get in touch with my real estate investment, the RI groups who've got real estate investors there, meetup groups who have real estate investors there, and sort of tie in. There's a need of finding good properties, and you are being able to get out there and finding them yourself, and tying those two and making some money at it. You learn a valuable skill set and won't rely on MLS in the future moving forward to developing this successful real estate investment career. Does that make any sense?
No, that's great. Great advice.
That's what I find often that people just want to rush into MLS, start looking around for a deal. And like I said before, many times I say, that's not the place to go to find deals. You need to create a power team. You need to create opportunities. It could be getting in your car, driving around through neighborhoods, older neighborhoods, and seeing a property that's depressed, beat up, and knocking on the door. It's not comfortable. You might get screamed at, but you got to get out of your comfort zone if you want to be successful in any walk in life. And so maybe you got to do that. You got to knock on that door and find out, hey, I'm interested. I'm an investor. I'm interested in buying your property. Would you be interested in talking? And there's always those opportunities. I don't care how great the economy is, how great the real estate market is, and how bad it is. Opportunities exist every single day. There is somebody out there right now as we speak that's struggling to make payments on their mortgage. There are people out there struggling right now because they got other bills to pay and they don't have money. There's illness, there's sicknesses. And I'm not looking at trying to put it in such a way that we're capitalizing on other people's misfortune. You're actually doing a service to these people because they're not in a position to be able to go out there to the real estate agent or salesperson that's in the area and go out there and sell their property. They might need money right now, or they might not want to, if they're living in their neighborhood for 30, 40 years, they just want to discreetly sell their home and just leave the area. They don't want, their neighbors walking through their home. Maybe they're hoarders. Maybe there's repairs that need to be done to the property. We wholesalers play an important role or just real estate investors, period, play an important role in the housing stock that's in our country because it needs to be renovated. It needs to be looked after. And there's people out there who can't do it that you can go out there and help them out. And by virtue of you finding those properties and then having a pool of real estate investors out there who have the cash, who have the knowledge, who need properties like that to put in their portfolio, if you make the match, You can make a couple of bucks at it, and you learn a skill set. You learn the business. How beautiful is that? And it doesn't cost you a nickel. Doesn't cost you anything. How about that?
I love it. I love it. Great answer. Great answer. Wow. Well, Van, this has been a great show. I am so stoked here. I think that there's just a lot of meat here for people, and they're going to have to definitely go to our show notes here, because we're going to have everything detailed out. But I'm sure there's those that would also like to find out more about you and your coaching. What's sort of the best way for them to find that information? vansturgeon.com. I encourage people to go there just as a place for resource for. I've written a number of articles, and I've been on other podcasts, and be able to get information on what I specialize in, which is rehabbing, renovating properties. Also, I'm offering like a free training as well that I encourage people to go on my website to take it. It gives them sort of the lay of the land of what they should be looking for. What are the things, critical elements in planning and managing your own house renovation, your own rehab, where you can save money, like you say, 30 to 50%. Well, Van, this has been a blast. We really, I think that this is going to be the show that's going to be liked by a lot of people. So thank you for coming with us. But before we say goodbye, we have this tradition. If you've listened to any of the podcasts, we're called the Old Dogs REI Network, and we have all of our guests close us out with their best old hound dog howl here. So if you're ready, hopefully you've been practicing and you're all got it all honed out here.
I've got it down to as best as I'm going to be able to. How about a
Ooh, that works. Good one, Van.
It took me a couple of days of practicing, but I got it down. Good.
Oh, great. Well, Thank you so much, Van, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem. I really do appreciate the exorbitant amount of time that you let me be on your podcast. You've been a great host, and if there's any opportunities to be able to come on your show and talk more about the experiences that I have, I would love to. Thank you very much for having me.
It's been my pleasure. And I also want to thank all our Old Dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Please note, everything that Van talked about today will be presented, all the links and the things that he's talked about as well can be accessed in our detailed show notes on the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. And you're going to look for the podcast episode entitled Van Sturgeon. So you'll be able to find that episode. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.